Welcome back to the French Rugby Podcast with me, Tim Groves, ex-Scotland international and adopted Frenchman, Johnny Beattie, and former France international, Benjamin Kayser. It's a French double again in the European competitions at the weekend as Lyon and La Rochelle both lifted their first European titles in Marseille. And we may be going to join the party in La Rochelle. Who knows? We've got the feelers out there, haven't we, Johnny?
That's a big maybe. We've had a lot of yeses, a lot of drunken replies. I don't know who's going to join us, if anyone, but we won't hold our breaths.
We'll see. The scenes have been fairly epic in the port. The open top bus parade. We've been in touch with several guys. We know they're having a lot of fun. Possibly too much fun to join us, Benji.
And as they should be. Come on. Boys, there's no chance in the world you would get me on a podcast on a Monday night after the Champions League. What are you on about? I mean, to put it back in perspective, I don't know. It's true that I heard like Will Skelton, or no, it was Ronan O'Gara, I can't remember who it was, who had to put La Rochelle on the map for the UK listeners. Obviously, people know Ile de Ré because it's like a posh place and stuff. But La Rochelle is a beautiful, but a little bit isolated French rugby cathedral now, which has completely taken over from Clermont in terms of heart, passion, fanatic supporters.
It's a big thing for you to say, Benji.
Yeah, but it's true. And to be fair, I was shocked last time I went back for the Clermont-Leicester game. Remember, I told you, and it wasn't full. And we were chatting. It was like, mate, the new Clermont-La Rochelle, fully, how do you say that? Sold out for almost the last 48 months or something. Unheard of. Well, 48 months. There was the pandemic in the middle, but you know what I mean. Sort of, let's not get at the truth game with a good story. Very, very much sold out. Lots of sold outs, but also a huge identity around the club. Fantastic economical equation that's been copied and envied by a lot of other clubs, based on lads who've been there for a long time. Fantastic support. The youth section is getting bigger. The sponsorship is fantastic. It's basically what Biarritz and Bayonne were hoping to do. If only they could get their heads out of their asses and agree to do one club. That's what it could be, and La Rochelle are just leading the way. With fantastic stories between Bourgarit and Alderete 3-4 years ago, whatever it was. We had Greg on the podcast who were playing for the Espoirs and Ush, and just those crazy good stories. A ton of players who were not unwanted, but not shining as much. And you put them in a right environment with the right amount of love, and they smash it. Jonathan Danty is a monster of a player, and he just needed a bit of fresh air. He needed a bit of love, a bit of self-confidence back. And La Rochelle just, got him with open arms. And you're like, oh, this guy's been there for 10 years. No, just joined. And he's smashing it. And he did a Grand Slam and won Europe. So no, they should be partying. They should be saying thank you to their fans. And I saw a quote of Greg saying, that the fans are as or more European champions than we are. Fair play. That's what it was. I know we'll speak about the game in length, but bloody hell, that was a proper hearty performance. They completely killed all the pronostics. They completely killed all the brains that tried to explain how much heart could not be taken care of or taken in consideration when it's about making a pronostic. And I was absolutely blown away by the performance. So they should be celebrating. I hope nobody's drowning in the harbor. I hope everybody's good and happy and healthy. But the scenes remind me of Place de Jaude, but with beautiful sunshine and a harbor and this Atlantic Ocean, because that's what La Rochelle is all about.
Let's chat about the game, Johnny, because one of those brains is right here. You thought Leinster were going to do it, didn't you?
Like, they were clear favourites to everybody, like us included. But we did talk about how La Rochelle could win, and it was essentially they play their perfect game. And that's what they did. Like, defensively, they were freakish, like animals. And lots of people try, like Benji, you and I have played against Leinster. We played against Ireland before. You try and line speed and try and put pressure, and they just cut you to bits. They shred you. But La Rochelle didn't. They were constantly got up in their faces, put them under pressure. And they made them look ordinary in certain facets of their game. And that's, for me, what was amazing. And again, you mentioned the sort of the crowd, the spirit, the back room, the village, the town that is La Rochelle. But plug into that Ronan O'Gara, Donncha Ryan, a coaching team that has got these guys primed, and you didn't even notice Victor Vito wasn't there. Like, one of the best players on the pitch for me was Matthias Haddad, like a 21-year-old flanker. He was absolutely phenomenal. Up time and time again, his work rate was insane. The tackles, taking people behind the gain line. The other one nobody really spoke about, but Kerr-Barlow, again, he wasn't there, but you would never have noticed. you wouldn't have noticed he wasn't playing. Thomas Bergeron, slick, accurate, his kicking game was spot on. So like it should have been potentially more disjointed than normal, but they almost took another step up with very important players missing. It was really well handled. They were dominant. We talked about the physicality last week as well, but both sides of the ball. Like one of the best examples for me was the first Leinster attack in La Rochelle red zone, where Leinster, a nice rat play off the back, they get like 5 meters over the gain line, another carry 3 meters over the gain line, and Leinster straight away under the sticks. And you're like, oh shit, this is going to be a long afternoon. And somebody comes up with a jackal. Like how many times and how good were they at the breakdown? Like it was absolutely monstrous. So like defensively, the effort they got through and the collective know-how to pressurize Leinster time and time again and make them look basic and simple was, for me, one of the best performances I've ever seen defensively. And then when they had time on the ball, they also showed that they're no mugs. Collectively, the semi-final was a write-off. That was an absolute bloodbath. But when they get their shit together, when they play well, when they play collectively as a team with their systems that are very, very impressive, it almost doesn't matter who the personnel are. When they're confident, they've got each other's backs and they attack that gain line with big carriers. And then they release the likes of Laid's rule that we saw at the back, creating absolute chaos with Brice Dulin, who another guy, you mentioned Jonathan Danty, but Brice Dulin's another one, another resurgence, like going from cast, from Racing, from nowhere, like loving his rugby. And you see how much he's enjoyed the celebrations the past couple of days. But collectively, they were absolutely phenomenal against a team that everybody had as favourites. So again, a massive shift. Benji, you just mentioned it in French rugby and moving to Northwest Coast, but La Rochelle now, with the coaching staff, with the players they've got at their disposal, with the infrastructure they have in the club, with the president they have, are here and they're here to stay. 3 finals in 2 years. It might be 4 over the next few weeks, but they were absolutely sensational. And again, I can't remember enjoying a final as much as I enjoyed that one. I absolutely loved watching it.
For me, the number one element is how they attack the ruck. So Leinster plays so quick that you have 2 solutions, but both of them you're going to get killed if you don't do it perfect, which is why they're so ruthless. If you compete for everything, but you don't come out with the ball, they'll kill you because you'll be outnumbered in your defensive line and they'll just overlap you. But if you don't compete in the ball and he goes 300 miles an hour like he was against Toulouse, the semi-final, I did it for BT at halftime, they said it. Average ruck speed, 2.41 seconds for Leinster, 4.6. Oh, no, it was 2.6 for Leinster, 4.4 for Toulouse. Done. You know, when you constantly get caught, you never have a second to breathe, to have a look what's going on. And then actually from very, very simple plays, they create breaks. And you think they're geniuses. No, they just go 3 times faster than everybody else, or twice as fast as opposition. And the game started against La Rochelle, and I heard Ronaldo go, we've got a plan. We've got a plan. You know, there was that big sentence. And they competed for every single ruck. I'm like, wow, they're doomed. That will last 20 minutes. And then as soon as either you get tired or you don't come out on top with the ball, you don't, get rewarded by the ref and stuff, then they will obviously find an overlap because they commit 2 guys, you commit 3, and then all of a sudden it's a numbers game. There's space out wide. But they didn't, and they never broke, and they got rewarded, and they did minute 20, minute 30, minute 40. Pierre Bourgarit, I know I love Julien Marchand. Pierre Bourgarit
beast
played probably the most impressive, not fighting, combattant, warrior type hooker position or number 2 position I've seen in a long, long time. He flew. He was like Cowan Dickey times 2. He flew into everything that was coming. He jackled every single ruck that was in front of him and Greg Aldrit and Vian Diebenberg and Matthias Haddad, like you said, who was nonstop. And they just kept at it and kept at it. Prizzo, bloody hell, he's got 4 lungs, this lucid prop. And they were just going at it, and I'm like, they're gonna get pinged. You know, it's too. Don't do that against Leinster. That's the typical mistake. And I think what Ronaldo Gar's plan was saying is that if we lose, we might as well lose by doing everything that we can. So just go full tilt into what we're good at. And if we come up short, we come up short. You know, it was that big poker play, that big strategy call that I think really got them extra motivated, extra up for it. They looked super confident. And, and physically they completely dominated with a Will Skelton who played 20 minutes or something in the last couple of weeks, and he was a monster. Beast. So fair play. It was just the ruck attitude and aggressivity was out of this world.
But what I took away from it as well, Benji, was it's almost that is top class coaching with a top class confident squad. Like there's a sprinkling of quality in certain positions, but most of it is French and most of it is high level, gifted players with a bit between their teeth, wanting to execute something at an extremely high level. And that's what we saw. Like, nobody does that to Leinster. Nobody does that to Ireland, apart from we saw France do it in the autumn where they blitzed them to death. And that was it. It was the combination of the fitness, the determination, the accuracy defensively, those three things, the line speed, the incessant getting off the line. That's exhausting. But then when you catch Leinster behind the gain line, you get them on the deck, you compete for ball, you slow the ball down. They're average. They're like everyone else. That was it. It's how do you take away that two-second ruck speed? If you take that away from them, they're just like everyone else. And that's exactly what they did. Once you get up in that arm wrestle and physically you're on the front foot, it's hard, like it is for everybody. And that's where, for me, it was a phenomenal defensive performance. That mix of the system, the will, and the players, and how it was coached, and watching it, it was just top class. I absolutely loved watching them. And I was watching with a Leinster supporter as well, which made it even better. So he was cheering every Leinster victory, every small victory, every penalty, which Leinster got a lot of the rubber green first half as well from Barnsley. But that was it. Just La Rochelle didn't fall away. They kept clawing away, kept believing in themselves. And second half, man, absolutely amazing stuff to watch them come back and win their first championship. It was colossal.
And you say nobody does it to Leinster, but I get that everyone thought Leinster were going to win this game. The situation was completely different last season in the semi-final. We mentioned last week, Johnny, some of the personnel was different as well, but they had done it to Leinster before. So that's kind of what I mean, as in, if you're in that La Rochelle dressing room, you think everyone's almost writing us off before we've started. It's almost a team talk written for them, isn't it?
And they'd been there, they'd done it. I think there's other areas of the game that we didn't really, like scrum, for instance. Like I thought the La Rochelle front row, the front five, were terrific at scrum time as well. And it was almost like, I'm not sure if they didn't play that first strength side last year, but watching England against Ireland at Twickenham during the Six Nations, they'd be like, right, well, we've pretty much effectively got a full front row that can play for France, and we're confident in ourselves. And they just picked them apart. And that was the same for several facets of the game. That was what was interesting to watch, that they were just confident. They went about their business quietly. Nobody pumped them up before. They were underdogs, which we heard Greg Aldrich talk about during the week, and how that tag really suited them. They didn't like being favourites. And that's it. They just got the bit between their teeth. They were determined, they were physical, and they didn't let up. And they just battered Leinster. And we've seen Saracens do it before. We've seen other teams do it before, but that was it. If you can bash Leinster, take that gain line away from them and cause havoc at the ruck and be accurate, which they absolutely were, you can come away with it. So look, it was top class and absolutely worth their win and their first European trophy.
Let's just face it, it's a lot of teams try to do exactly that plan.
Exactly.
And most fail. Right. It's like the All Blacks. You try to commit everybody in the ruck and slow them down, you're doomed. Unless you do it in a perfectly disciplined, with a massive tank of energy with you. That's why big shout out to Phil Gardon, who's the former conditioner of Clermont with me, who's in La Rochelle doing a top job. And it's a proper sort of a win from a whole coaching side. I'm sure Doncha Ryan was all the way up there in the line strategy and stuff. But it's basically what Munster tried to do to Toulouse in the quarters, and almost got away with. So potentially Ronald O'Gara will watch that game with a lot of attention. And after the game, he said the Connacht game,
in the URC
game, and the Leicester game they played. I think he was full of shit on that one. I don't think there's the two games that you watched, to be fair, but he must have watched some good stuff, because his confidence, his own experience. You know, when a guy, he's the perfect guy basically to tell you how to beat Leinster in the European final. Not only he's been there, done that, but knows them inside out. When he says, I've got a plan, he's only the perfect person for that week.
And you're spot on about the breakdown. And Johnny, you're spot on about the defense. Everyone's talking about those aspects. They did outscore them 3-0. And the key thing you mentioned, you can't do either of those things for a full 80 minutes because you'd be exhausted. They forced Leinster to make 224 tackles. They had the lion's share of the possession. And it is about starving Leinster of ball as well, isn't it?
Yeah, starving them of ball. So they did really well. And the forwards battle was tremendous. I just think there was another win but also because it's not so much coaching. It's also down to what man you've got at your availability. But there's a huge emphasis from Ronan O'Gara on the 23-man squad. And I don't think he was joking. He was genuine about it. When you have Jonathan Danty throwing himself at you, and my word, he's a monster. Then Botia comes out at the end. When you have, all those guys that you mentioned up front and stuff, but you have Sazi, who's no fun. You have Scalvi, Bosch, and what's his name, and the Lucid that comes in and stuff. They have a proper cavalry coming in that really hits you on the head. And no disrespect to anybody at Leinster, but when Tai Furlong comes off, it's not the same player. Alalatewa, I think his name is. Butchered his name, but the Samoan international. It's a tough one, right? It's so the coach has also won that 6-2 split, 5-3 split, 23-man emphasis during the week, or I'm sure that's sort of a thesis about them to make sure that, like you said, they were able to sustain that performance, that defensive energy, and that general performance for the full 80.
And Benji mentioned it briefly. I asked you last week, Johnny, how important Will Skelton would be, given he hasn't played a lot of rugby. I think we got our answer, didn't we?
I don't think I've seen a man enjoy a game of rugby, like enjoy putting himself about and trying to bully an opposition as much as that in a long time. Like, you see Itzebeth in different ways going about his business, but he's just so effective. Like, he's such a big unit and he knows how effective he can be. So to see somebody take pleasure in going about the business and rolling their sleeves up after a disappointing, 3, 4, 5 weeks out with a calf injury was insane. And that's it. We talked about the physicality, how that would be the key in terms of carries and destroying breakdown and destroying opposition carries. And he was absolutely the forefront with Atonio, Aldrit, Joe Dante, we've already mentioned, but domineering across the board, top drawer. And I didn't think Leinster had the answer for that physicality, and he was the epicenter of everything good about it. And that was why they won the game. Like, that combination of defense, that combination of collision and jackal area, he was just monstrous, man. And I think he's been fairly monstrous over the past 48 hours as well on the piss. And he's enjoying himself, but they absolutely should. I mean, they were absolutely ridiculous to watch, written off. But what a performance. And he was absolutely phenomenal. Clearly one of the best tight headlocks in the world right now. And yeah, just top class, a top performance. And he absolutely was there. He's been central to everything that's been good about La Rochelle the past couple of seasons. And there you go, the first big trophy for them. And he'll be absolutely delighted with it.
And speaking of men who've been enjoying themselves over the past few days, another friend of the show who we've just had a message from. I don't think he's going to be joining us. He might have had a few pints and a few cocktails as well. Ehire West. Benji, we had him on the show and we spoke to him about last year's finals, both of them. He took a lot of flack for his kicking, 4 out of 4. And not just that, he was good, wasn't he?
He was proper good. That's what I was thinking. If I don't want to not speak about him, but I was also thinking, what's next for La Rochelle? So this season, yes, they've got to deal with Lyon on the weekend. They're not qualified yet, but I think they'll make it. Come on, they can rotate, and they'll still have a strong squad. I reckon they'll be in that momentum, and they play Lyon, who will be in the same boat, right? Lyon will be steaming the same. But in the same time, what's for next year? And the problem is, because I saw Greg Aldrit re-sign 3 years, and all those guys are going to re-sign, and the future looks bright. But they're losing him. They're losing Ehire West. He's going to Toulon. He's leaving, and so they're going to have 2 new 10s, and that's a big old position to fill. And he's been instrumental. He really has been sort of the talisman of this team to take them to that new era where La Rochelle were going to be. It took them a while, and they were always big. Uini Atonio has been there 10 years. And, they were always complicated. Before Will Skelton, there was Johnny Kovu, who was a ginormous dude. So there was always big fellas. I reckon him, Kerr-Barlow, Victor Vito, really implemented that mindset and that modern 2.0 version of La Rochelle that got them up to speed. Because clearly, he might not be the perfect 10. That's why he got some flock last year in the final, because he maybe not be the one doing the boring 10 to control game. But in terms of putting tempo to an attack, in terms of being a one-on-one threat, he's all the way up there. And when he's good, he's outstandingly good. And I think that's what he's done that whole campaign. He probably had a point to prove personally, and I love those stories. Good on him. I think he is well-deserved when you prove everybody wrong by a performance, not by luck. Fair play to him. He's going to be one massive loss for La Rochelle. That's my only worry for them in the future.
Different type of 10, but is Antoine Hastoy next season?
Yeah,
Johnny. Yeah,
from Pau. So he's come up. So he's the first one. And again, different type of player, like you say, Benji. But again, it's taking Ehire a bit of time to not to get up to speed, but to be leading the team the way he leads the team consistently. Like, it's almost like, for me, the system and the way Rog organizes them. I think if you bring somebody in and coach them up, they can get them up to speed. And I think it's more the system than the individuals that really make it sparkle. Although Ehire West has been another man. Like, he's been great in a team that functions at an extremely high level. It might even be more difficult for him going to Toulon and picking up as a 10 with a completely different system. But Hastoy, again, is a guy that's got the nuts and bolts, maybe third, fourth choice in the French hierarchy to go on and potentially kick on to another level. I think that's what they're hoping for from him. But to go back to West, the most pleasing thing for me for him, and knowing him a little bit, like we caught up on the pitch after the semi-final, he was absolutely buzzing. But I think it's the manner and the note that you finish on at clubs, which the memory that you leave. And for him, he's just gone about his business and dominated one of the best, maybe not dominated, but got a massive one over and lifted the trophy. And his opposite man was one of the best of all time. Like that's what you're talking about. He's gone up against Leinster, red hot favourites, but Johnny Sexton is, 3-time British Lion, 100-odd Irish caps, the captain of the national side. He is the talisman. But the man that we're talking about this week is Ihaya West. And that's what makes it phenomenal for me. And part of this team win and this massive win for their club and for their town, there's all these little individual wins, part of a system that were superb to watch, whether it was Skelton, whether it was Lavault, despite his yellow card. Again, just the grind of all these different guys in their own little niches in their positions. I absolutely loved watching it. And Ihaya is a guy who loves his rugby. I think he'll be a little bit sad, genuinely, to leave his mates at La Rochelle because they have such a good group together. But what a note to leave on. I mean, absolutely phenomenal to have done that, to have beaten Johnny Sexton, to have lifted the trophy, the first one in the history of the club. I mean, it doesn't get any better. So kudos to him. It's been amazing watching him as well on his journey through La Rochelle. And it doesn't look like he's going to join us because he's absolutely wasted. But you know what? Fair play to him. I'd be in the exact same boat.
Johnny mentioned it there. An amazing performance, made all the better because I'm sure when Thomas Lavault was yellow carded, everyone was thinking game over.
You were very kind with Thomas Lavault, I think, there, because that was one stupid thing to do in a European final. He's young. He's a ferocious second row who does a lot of graft, who probably learned all his trade from Romain Sazi, who's got to be one of the most slippery rugby players in the history of the sport.
Sheriff.
So he's learned a few things, but I was scared for them. I was scared that they were going to slip. And like I said to you, after 20 minutes, I saw them hitting all those rocks. Like, they can't sustain that. It's too hard. Where they didn't score. How long did that last? Sort of those last 10 minutes last? Forever. It was just never ending. I was like, oh, are you sure about this? Are you sure about this? Insisting, not taking the points. And again, I think it's the mindset. They went, go hard or go home. They really had that mindset of saying, we're not going to try and do a Leinster, which are ruthless. So they'll put 3 points, and they'll always come back, and they're just constantly grinding in, and they can control a game. They said, the only way that we can win is if we control ball possession as maximum, that we take them into our arena, and, let's take them in the phone booth. Let's see how much they can run in there, and let's control the game the way that we decide to do so. And so those last 10 minutes are a perfect example. They could have taken the points 1,000 times. Would have they got another opportunity to get 5 meters out? I'm not so sure.
No.
They didn't get a yellow card in the scrum, Leinster. I think they were penalized at least 4 or 5 times. Mm-hmm. That was a bit of a weak decision from Wayne Barnes. I thought he should have pinged them. It was just too. It was too sort of, how do you say that? Too kind of him not to do so. But they stayed at it. So in terms of confidence, I think they were all the way up there. They were like, let us do this thing. Because you remember, Bush tries to extend his arm and he drops it. So they had a couple of cock-ups, right, on that line, but they just kept on going and kept on going and kept on going. So I was super, super impressed with that determination that let's stick to what we do really well. And again, that goes down to the mindset, attitude reflects leadership. So there's great leaders within that team, but also Ronaldo Gar just, feeding them with his mindset of saying, just back yourself 1,000%, and then we'll see. If we lose, let's lose big.
Did you not think it was a great call again to be a man down, and then you've got an upper hand, slight upper hand once, like you mentioned, Tag Furlong goes off, the scrum's creaking, and you're like, well, we've got our foot on their throat, so let's just go. Let's just keep pounding and see what happens. And I love listening to Rog after the game, like he had a big mention for Donica Ryan saying, the quickest way to score a try or to get over the try line is just a straight line. It's 1 meter, it's pick and go. And like, how many phases did they get through? There were no chance they were giving their back line a man down, the ball out wide, but that was it. They just absolutely pummeled them. They had it in the physical edges. They had it in tight. They had it up close, and they just got over the line. By this and no more, but it was absolutely incredible to see them stick to their strengths and just batter them. And that was it. They battered the way to a title. But like you said, Benji, they weren't going to get back up the field with a yellow card down and get another choice to score. That was their way they were going to win the game. They knew themselves. When you have that feeling on the field and you think, right, we're going to go for a double shove and scrum. We need to keep it tight. We're not going to do anything else. And when you have that feeling, you keep it tight. You stick to your guns. You stick to what you believe in. And that was really impressive as well. Because I think other teams would have taken a 3 and then thought, right, we're going to have another shot. That's the correct thing to do. But not at all. The correct thing to do was to stick to their beliefs, stick to their strengths. And they absolutely did that.
There's another example of sticking to your strength. I remember watching the semi. I barely watched it against Racing because it was boring as. I remember at the end, Kerr-Barlow comes off, right? And Arthur Rochelle comes in at 9. And at the end, because they're not winning by that much. I think II West scores at like 78th minute or something like that, or 75th. I can't remember when it was. But until then, they were like 1 point ahead. Something could have happened, right? And it would have been a massive upset, but something could have happened. And Arthur Rochelle comes in, and he's a 9 that doesn't really like to pass the ball. He's one of those electric number 9s that is crazy good on 1-on-1. He can make it, but he's a winger that can play 9. That type of Austin Healy type of player. And he tries once or twice to go around the ruck. He gets caught, gets penalized, and I'm telling everybody's yelling at him. And I remember precisely II West actually turning his eye. Bloody hell, just screaming at him, just pass the bloody thing. Stop. Blah, blah, blah. What would have happened? A normal coach who doesn't know his players probably, and I don't know what happened inside the La Rochelle, I'm not trying to say, but Roland O'Gara probably, if you're, an idiot coach, at the end, you're like, mate, last time you try. This is no fun and games, all right? You're not playing with the academy anymore. When you come on, you're going to deliver. And he scores the winning try in the final 3 weeks before by doing exactly that. Sticking to what he's very, very good. And he almost dropped it. He almost didn't score it. But if he doesn't back himself to the moon and back and tries, they actually never win it, do they? If they stick to just little pick and go that Leinster can defer all day long, they don't win it. So it's just another example of, stick to what you do perfectly well. Stick to your guns, to who you are, and then back yourself to the moon.
Speaking of leaders and battering them in the tight, a man you know very well, Benji, was at La Rochelle when they got promoted from Pro D2 8 years ago. The king of La Rochelle, from whoever we speak to on the podcast, Uini Atonio. He is going to be loving life right now, isn't he?
Mate, I'm genuinely very happy for him. He's not only has he got a Winnie the Pooh massive tattoo, on his chest, which is true. He actually has a massive teddy bear tattoos here, a teddy bear that's sleeping like this. But he's the kindest human giant you will ever find. He's like a Joe Tikori. He's a magnet to good social lads. You just want to hang out with him. He's always happy. He's always smiling. You just don't want to be a roommate with him because he snores like a motherfucker. But other than that, he's just the kindest thing. I remember Gail Ficou saying, when they're speaking about the whole Six Nations and France and stuff. And he's like, mate, when I hang out with Uini Atonio or Romain Tao or Teddy Thomas, whatever, I just don't want to leave them. I genuinely don't want to leave them. And that's probably the nicest compliment you can ever give to one of your teammates, right? And Uini is one of those. Just you don't want to leave him. You want to stick around with him. And he's stuck to La Rochelle in the good and the bad moments. When he was getting picked up by the French team, he got a massive offer by Toulouse. I remember one year, gave him 5-year contract, whatever, where Toulouse was smashing it and La Rochelle was just getting promoted and he wasn't starting for the French team and this and that. He had a big old gap in his international career where he wasn't picked up by France anymore. He wasn't looked at. Now he's a Grand Slam winner. He's a Champions Cup winner. He's definitely going to have a statue in La Rochelle somewhere. Because he's, or at least there'll be a merry-go-round, with him, and kids will be able to ride him or something. but he's one of those gentle giants that I will challenge you to find somebody who has something bad to say about him, and he will be living his best life at the moment, probably falling asleep up and getting back up and going back to partying. So, I wish him all the best. He sent me I sent him a message. He sent me a nice thing back, and I was just genuinely chuffed for him.
And the tattoo. Winnie the Pooh or a teddy bear?
Yeah. No, Winnie the Pooh.
Because Winnie.
In French, everybody says, no, is it not the same in England? Pooh bear. Yeah. In French, it's Winnie the Pooh.
Yeah.
And so Winnie l'ourson, Winnie the Pooh. And so he got a massive tattoo on his chest.
Of course.
I don't know how that happened. I thought it was a myth. And I've seen it. And because he's a ginormous human being, I mean, his tattoo is probably big, like 3 times like in my head. So it's a proper tattoo.
He'll be leading the charge. And right by his side, again, we've had messages. Raymond Rule, Johnny. Did you see the boombox before the game? He'd be living life as well now.
Saw the boombox. He had the super soaker out. I'm not sure if it was vodka, champagne, or water he was spraying on the crowd off the bus in La Rochelle. He sent a couple of vids just with something in his hand with the boys, with his feet in the sand. So look, I think they're all having an amazing time, and absolutely worth it. Like, tremendous. And that's these memories that you get when you go through and you have success as a team. And like Benji mentioned, it's been a long old slog for La Rochelle, but what a story. Like 8 years after getting promotion from Pro D2 to top 14 to be the champions of Europe. Like, that doesn't happen. It doesn't happen to anybody. So the fact that they've done it, they've written this fairy tale ending, is absolutely crazy. But as Benji said, the question is what's next? Like, what's next for these guys now that they're there? Are they going to be at this level consistently? 3 finals in 2 years? Would say yes. Can they tie down the coaching staff? Can they make it a year in, year out thing? Are they going to turn into a dynasty as Clermont once were, as Toulouse have been? Are they going to challenge every single year? That's the exciting thing for these guys now as a group, with their feet in the sand now, having a beer and laughing and talking what they've just won is, let's go and do it next year.
It was always a big ask to expect any of them to come on 10, 20, 30 beers deep, champagne, cocktails, whatever, from the beach. If they don't, we'll get them on in the weeks to come. We'll find out what the celebrations were like. But from you two, a lot of people in the UK and Ireland look on at those celebrations in La Rochelle with envy, because rugby over there is slightly different. I mean, I'm not saying if Leicester won the trophy, there wouldn't be huge celebrations, but just the scenes that we saw in the port looks incredibly special. Can you two contextualize that and give an insight into how special that looked compared to things you've experienced over there?
It's well, you probably lived that with Bayonne, Johnny. But it's, I mean, the only sort of equal sentiment that I can tell you is winning it with Clermont. When you have such passion behind a club and people ready to travel and to support and to cheer and to go over and beyond what's normal to do to support people in the good or the bad moments, it just makes it extra special. So I think people don't need to think that this is the case everywhere in France. They're just special clubs that are extraordinary because of that. There's La Rochelle, there's Clermont, there's Toulouse in the good old days, there's Bayonne in a certain way, but it's not like that everywhere. The same way, like you said, that if you did in England, I mean, I remember going to David Strettel's wedding in 2017 after we lost the Champions Cup final to Saracens, but then we won the top 14. And I went to his wedding. There was loads of Saracens boys, and I was sitting in front of Brad Barrett. He was saying, "Oh yeah, we saw all those scenes of 100,000 people Place de Jour. That must have been good." So I mean, that was the bomb. And that year, did they win the double, or I can't remember, if they won the Premiership too that year, but at least they won the Champions Cup. And I was like, I mean, it must have been extraordinary for you. He's like, well, I've got an anecdote. He used to live in St. Albans, and I go down to my local pub. He goes, "Hey, well done." He's like, "Yeah, fair enough." And he sits down with some of the boys on the Sunday and stuff for a bit of a Sunday session, and a crate of beer arrives with 10 pints. He's like, "I mean, I've been living here for 10 years. The first time I don't have to order, and we get a free round of beers." And smash some beers, have a good time. And at the end of the day, the guy just drops the bill. Every single beer was on there. They didn't get one free, like not one free. We did 3 days in Clermont after the 2017 title, where I think, I can't remember why, but 2 days later, I need to drop my wife somewhere. I said, "Don't worry." I was still steaming probably. I was, "Don't worry." I was 20 minutes away from Clermont. "Don't worry, I'll find a way. I'll find a way to come back." I was going to walk back to town thinking I'm going to take the bus. I don't know where I was. I think 49 seconds later, there was 2 cars waiting. "Where are you going?" "We'll drop you." Whatever. And it was 3 days after. It just took it to a different dimension. It's also towns that live through a group of players putting them on the European map. And La Rochelle is just one of those. It's actually a small town, very, very proud, huge history, incredible natural resources. Charente-Maritime, there's to drink, there's to eat, there's to walk, there's to cycle, there's to swim, there's whatever you want. There's
all
to
the best
fish.
bits.
No, man, it's a beautiful, beautiful town. But they have been, lifted to a different era thanks to rugby, because you have European travelers that come, and so they just want to give it back. It goes over and beyond anything you can think of. But it's just the expression of love and consideration and devotion of those people who truly treasure it. So it's not like that everywhere in France.
But weirdly, I would say 2 out of the 3 sides that I played for in France, it was like that. Like Castres, a town of 35,000 people, La Rochelle, 75,000 people, Bayonne, 35,000 people. Like, these are not big towns, but it's almost like, I think from the outside looking in, like London and Saracens is a different kettle of fish because there's so much to do. There's so many distractions. But when you flip it and you have the rugby that animates the town and engages people and brings people into something where there isn't much else apart from a passion for an amazing sport, that's the engagement you get. And that's maybe what's lacking, because in the UK, most of the teams are built around big cities with lots of distraction. But for Brits, when we look across and we see the passion, when we see the carnival, when we see the face paints, when we see the beers and the cigarettes and the chips stand at the side of the pitch, and we just in the sunshine that we don't have where we're from, that's what you get. You get this engaged, passionate town that wants to back their team everywhere they go, and they travel and they come everywhere with you and they celebrate like nowhere else. And that's why it's different, Benji. And no matter the size of the town, like I couldn't get around my head and cast 35,000 people, but every single week in the stadium, there's 16 to 20,000 people in a town of 35. It just pickled my head. And the same with Bayonne. It's not a big place, but they sell out 20,000 every single week. That's the engagement and the passion that these towns have for the rugby. And I think that's maybe what's lacking a little bit in the UK and Ireland. There's certain teams that do it really well, but across the board, there's not the same engagement. There's not the same passion. There's not the same fervor for going to a stadium, supporting your team. That is the beauty of the south of France. And now teams like La Rochelle engaging in the Northwest, engaging different publics. And when you see the turnout, like that photo is historic. When you see the turnout to support an open bus tour, to mark the memories of Yehia West, of Greg Aldrich, who've just re-signed or leaving the club, these memories will last a lifetime, because that's what it meant to the people from that town. That's the best bit is making these memories and accomplishing these things together. That's what makes it so cool.
Right. We will have a look at the Challenge Cup final shortly. But first, summer's nearly here, isn't it, Johnny? We've got beers for people.
We do, mate. And they're very good. I actually had a couple of them popped off in the pool this week, and I felt right as rain after them because I had a whiskey night about 10 days ago and it took me about 6 days to recover. So these set me right. Days Brewing from Scotland, 0 alcohol, but they are absolutely banging. So if you're getting a barbecue, if you're going to sport, if you're lucky enough to be by a swimming pool or just heading to the beach, get some of these in your hand because they're absolutely class.
Yeah, we've sent you yours as well, Benji. Days is a new breed of alcohol-free beer created for those who want to do more. Proudly brewed in Johnny's native Scotland, they are 0.0% ABV and low calorie, and they're now a B Corp certified company, committing 2% of all sales to charities that empower fresh thinking towards mental health. Brewed for good times, good days, and good tomorrows, you can enjoy all the great moments associated with a cold beer, just without the side effects. And with over 700 5-star reviews, it tastes great too. So just head over to daysbrewing.com and use the code RugbyPass15 to get 15% off a case. Challenge Cup final, Lyon-Toulon. Not a classic, but Lyon certainly seized their moment, didn't they, Benji?
I didn't see it coming at all either. Not at all. Not one slightest bit. Extremely poor pronostic from me, but definitely hugely well-deserved win by Lyon. They just dominated them. They butchered them for the whole game. Complicated conditions, very, very wet ball, and they seem to play seamlessly. They just Niniashvili, that Georgian winger fullback, you got to remember him because he's a proper player. Guillaume Marchand is stepping into the shoes of his brother Julien, and he was very, very good. They just dominated them. Jordan Tofua, I don't know how you say that. Tofa,
beast.
8, who played for Leicester and Crusaders before and stuff. Captain of the team, who really seems to be sort of the talisman of this team and getting them to the different level. Baptiste Couillou. I mean, we have so many good nines at the moment in France. It's pretty unreal. We're very, very blessed. The same way that I mentioned Bourgarit, and you've got 5 hookers, including Kamisha, who's not even picked, or Guillaume Marchand now. But 9, I mean, Baptiste Couillou didn't even get a sniff. But, he's very, very good. And Baptiste Serin is very good. And obviously, Lucu and Anton Dupont. So, we're and Nolan Le Garrec, whatever. There's just too many. I don't want to choose.
All right.
But they had a brilliant game. And they just clearly dominated it. Minute 1 to minute 80. I didn't see one moment where they didn't deserve to win. And unfortunately, Toulon were suffocated in their final in the Stade de Vélodrome de Marseille, which they lost to, I can't remember where it was, Cardiff, I think it was, in 2012 or something like that, ages ago. And they still are pissed off about that one. It was the Johnny Wilkinson, Sonny Billy Williams, and all that generation. And they're still really, really peed off. And they just couldn't convert it. It was there for the taking. It was the perfect scenario. They beat Saracens, who obviously were huge contenders in the semi. They were dominating. They were really bouncing back. They're looking really threatening. Chelsea and Colby was back, and they just got beaten by better on the day. That's just man. Yeah, and they were out. How do you say that? Hungry. They just wanted it more. Lyon by a mile. They were just hungrier than them, more on the money, throwing their bodies on everything, and just dominating.
No, I just thought they played a really simple, pragmatic game plan that completely undid Toulon. Toulon trying to run things from strange areas of the field, even like the first interception try where Sergio Parise gives like a decent option 3-on-1, but it's just well read. That smart play, outfoxed again. And then I think physically they really, really went for Carbonell. The amount of times Tuisova barged over that, like I felt bad for Louis Carbonell, the amount of times he got sat in his ass. But that was it. Lyon just pragmatic, a kicking game with Gatai just sticking the ball in there time after time, pressurizing the back three, forced them to run out, and they sort of fell into the trap that was set. Look, I think as well, massive, massive score for Pierre Mignoni. Like for him to have won that after all the graft that's gone in over the period of time he's been with Lyon, and to beat Toulon, the team that he's going to next season, that's huge for him. Like a huge sort of validation of the work that he's put in, the graft, the coaching staff that's been working extremely hard there, the emphasis on youth that they've had as well. Some of the young kids they've come through that played extremely well. Kuyo, one of the guys that's played time and time again over the past 2 seasons, has been superb, but that was it. They just looked hungry, settled, pragmatic. And you can't forget, they lost at home to Toulon 4 or 5 weeks ago by 45 points. They shipped 42 points, I think it was, 5 weeks ago to the same Toulon side in the top 14 at home in Lyon. So a massive statement, a massive kick up the ass. Strategically, they set up very differently to play, and Toulon just fell apart. So a huge final, and absolutely well-deserved. The first silverware for them since 1933, I think the stat is, which is crazy. And the perfect send-off for Pierre Mignoni. Now they've booked Champions Cup rugby for next season with that win. The question for them is as well, alongside La Rochelle, where are they going to finish in this pecking order? What are they going to do in the top 14? Still lots of moving parts. We don't know who's going to finish in the top 6, but why can't they go on and win that as well? A chip and a chair, as we see Cast have done time and time again, but a huge result for them, momentous for the club, historic for them. Their president will be absolutely delighted at the cash he's injected over the past 10 years. So a huge result.
Yeah, first major trophy for them since 1933. Benji mentioned Niniashvili, a hell of a performance from him. He was also at the centre of all the major incidents. The first one on the stroke of half time, just his leg in the wrong place. Just what was he doing? But
doesn't matter, mate. We don't need to talk about it because they won the game. If they'd lost the game, you'd be like, oh my shit. And he would get it and he would not let to live it down. But the fact they won the game, we'll scratch that one. The other talking points, though?
Thankfully, we can scratch that one. The other one, I don't know what you both made of it, but Ebenezer's clear out on him.
He obviously melts him, don't get me wrong, but it's a clear out. The only problem is that Niniashvili is just tackle the dude. So first, rewind 9 seconds, he melts. It's a
That's why it happens.
All right. And then he gets back up, whatever, and then he goes on the wing and he catches the guy, except instead of tackling and ending up on his own half, he shows his ribs and his back, facing backwards. You have to clear him out, to be totally honest. You have to clear him out.
Do you have to clear him out like that?
Really hard. Yes. That's what the game's about. You've just been dump tackled by a winger. You fucking got you got red, miss comes down, but he's legally, if he's not connected, you didn't show a video angle where he hits his head, right? So it looks like the top of his back, but that's it. You've just been smashed. You've been made to look like a dick by a small winger. And the game is about physicality. So of course, you're going to see that same guy, like Benji said, 10 seconds later, your eyes are going to light up and you're going to try and smash him to bits. That's what the game's about. That's why we love it. However, if he has connected clearly with his head, it's a red card. But we didn't see that. There was no video proof. If he'd been shown to have connected straight with his head, he'd been sent from the field, he'd been sent off, but we didn't get that.
Right. Well, that's the grey zone of rugby. I don't think it's about the head. Pascal Papier, remember, got a yellow or a red for charging in the ribs Jamie Hislop France-Ireland game. And Jamie Hislop is in a driving maul and he just ends up, rolling over and showing his back. If you want to push the driving maul, you have to whack him in the ribs. Red card. No, but it was red card or yellow or something. He definitely got a card that day. And Eden Elizabeth didn't get anything. So that's the whole thing of what are you meant to do? I don't think there's any other way for Pascal Papé to hit that rock. Did he do it on purpose to hit him ribs? Absolutely, I think so. And did Eden Elizabeth do on purpose, try to clear him as hard as he possibly could to, for payback? Yes, but that's part of the game. Did he actually try to clear out a guy who was in the tackling zone of a ball carrier of his own team? Yeah. Did he have any other way of doing it without hitting his back? I'm not sure, actually. I don't know how he could have done it unless if he ran, stopped, pulled him out, right? Which is never going to happen. So it was definitely revenge. I think the problem is it's a small winger against a ginormous man. And so it doesn't make it look any better. But the rules have to be the same, even for the small, for the big, for the whatever, for the ultra big like him. So it's random. I'll just say great clear out, fantastic tackle from Niaz Julie a couple of seconds before.
And irrespective of whether that should have been sanctioned, should he have been allowed to carry on afterwards?
Fuck no. Mate, he was snoring on his back.
What went wrong?
Two things. The Lyon medical team, shocker. And then you're meant to have an independent head doctor that's watching and pulling people from the field. So both of them have failed or have not been quick enough. But the guy is there either with the physio or with the doctor, I don't know which because I don't know the staff, on his back snoring. They had to wake him up. There's no way. Mate, he was out cold. They had to he sat snoring on his back. There's no way. He was out cold. There's absolutely no way he should just stayed on the field of play.
And he was certainly staggering around when he rejoined the defensive line. So at some stage, someone has to see that surely and do something.
Of course. And that's it. In a game that we play that we all love, it's getting more and more physical, more and more attritional. We're trying to look after players' mental health, also brain health. And 100% he has to be pulled from the field quicker. We have to do better and look after our players. So there might be some sort of inquest as to why or how he was allowed to carry on, but it wasn't safe. It's not safe to allow somebody to go on and potentially get a second hit and do that again because he was in dreamland. It was scary. Again, watching it, somebody that's had concussions and been knocked out on the field, that was scary watching him being allowed to stagger around behind the defensive line and the prospect of making another tackle 5 seconds afterwards. So you hope, again, that it's signaled that the Lyon staff catch wind, they do better next time, but he absolutely should have been nowhere near the field. He should have been off straight away.
And we chatted about comparisons with the UK in terms of the celebrations in La Rochelle a little earlier on. Both Lyon and La Rochelle came up from Pro D2 together 8 years ago, and Lyon have been down and come up again since then as well. Does this show everyone else what's possible and also show sort of the strength of the French rugby pyramid? I know the comparisons with England are very difficult, that like we've discussed, the towns in France dominated by rugby. It's not the same in England, but it does show, doesn't it, what you can do in French rugby and the way that pyramid works very well.
I'm not sure how many more promotions there are going to be. In the same era, we had Racing, we had Bordeaux, we had Lyon, we had La Rochelle, we had all those guys that were sort of also putting rugby, sort of an area of rugby that wasn't represented on the map, which was perfect. Then you have a little bit Oyonnax, then you have a little bit Grenoble. So basically the only spots that are untouched at the moment are probably even further north, like Vannes, Brittany, completely north, like Lille. They tried and it's failed. Or completely east, like Strasbourg, and all that area in Alsace, but they're not particularly rugby over there, even though Morgan Parra's from there. So I think it's incredibly hard. I think a little bit like in England, you've reached, I think, the limits of what they can do to try to promote some more clubs and this and that. We'll see some other adventures, like you said, at huge backers, Lyon, and it took them a ton of time to get their first title. It's very, very complicated. I don't see it happening anymore. But they're definitely one of the reasons why French rugby is so competitive. And so the fact that it's spread out more into France just makes so much more sense, make it so much more interesting, makes it so much richer.
And that's the key word, is richer. In that now, if anybody comes up like this week, we've got Bayonne and Mont-de-Marsan that are in the Pro D2 final. But if Mont-de-Marsan win that, what are they going to do in the top 14?
I don't
you're
think
playing
they
against
want
team,
to get promoted, to be fair. I don't even think they want to.
but the players will.
Yeah.
The players on the field, knowing the boys that are there and knowing some of the boys in the staff, Remy Tales, and the way they think, it'll be an adventure. But realistically, when you go up there, Monomarsan have been up there before. Benji, we played against Monomarsan in top 14. Like, what are their actual expectations? It is really hard when you don't have the budget now. And that's where you said there won't be many more of these success stories. If Monomarsan go up, they're not miraculously going to get 15 million more euros in budget. It's just not going to happen. Bayonne, potentially, if they go up, they might get a little bit of boost in the coffers. They already have a much bigger mass salarial than, how do you say that? A salary cap, bloody hell, than Monomarsan. But that's it. If Monomarsan go up, what are they going to do? And you're looking for who's the next real team. Like you mentioned, the Van Benji, is the president from Van going to find an extra 10 million to try and pump in and compete with Racing and Bordeaux and Toulouse with the budgets they have? That's the money that you have to have now to compete at the table in top 14. It is that elevated, and you have to have seriously deep pockets. And that I think is going to be the struggle, like Benji mentioned. Who can find that cash?
Right. It's about time we did our meter moment of the week. What have you got for us, Benji?
I've got two consecutive moments, but they're not particularly interesting. It's just to sort of highlight the
give
reason
it the big
why
billing. It's not interesting.
you can turn it off now. You can switch off to something else. No, it's just to show the importance of the heart and the work rate of La Rochelle, and that's the reason why they won. And I mentioned Danny Prizzo. I don't know if you guys remember, but off a kickoff, he's on the halfway line and he almost blocks the kick of Johnny Sexton. And there's a zoom on him because he is not far from blocking him, and it's a 60 meters or 50 meter sprint or something. It was just that hunger for him to come. It took him 20 minutes to get back into the game because he was flogged after that. But at least I don't think I've ever seen a Lucet prof off a kickoff. Have a think about what I'm trying to say. Who sprinted, and he was 20 meters ahead of everyone like a winger and almost blocked the kick of Johnny Sexton. That's pure hunger. And then he came off, and Vida what's his name? Radi came on. And the second example I've got on this is the penalty that basically changed the whole game from La Rochelle, allowed them to line out for him to score, is Pierre Bourgarit. Again, it's off a chase and he's sprinting like there's no tomorrow. Johnny Sexton dummies because he's going to get blocked, passes the ball to somebody else, to Keegan, who goose steps a guy, whatever. Well, Bourgarit actually, he gets tackled and he's on the ball jackling, penalty, turnover. They kick to touch and they score. So for me, that's just the absolute hunger. And it was minute 66 or something. And they were flogged physically. These are two guys that did a monster of a game in the scrum. And one of them is running 50 meters on a kickoff. The other one is running 40 meters, gets a turnover, still has the lungs to throw away on the line out and to score that try, who got them back into the game. So just general effort from front rowers to put absolutely everything they had for that team. And for me, that's the difference between the two teams. Not the Leinster front rowers didn't, but even the big fellas, everybody was saying, oh, the big La Rochelle guy, even the biggest of the biggest, man, they did a lot of work and they busted their asses for that team, and that's why they deservedly won.
Johnny, I can see you laughing there. In the glitz, the glamour, the colour of European finals weekend, Benji has picked the grunt and the
front row.
Two front rowers.
Of course. But weirdly, my wild card, I'm not sure if you've seen it, was actually going to be another front rower from Pro D2, from Oyonnax against Bayonne. So Bayonne won the game. But have you seen the try scored by Oyonnax's tight head prop?
No.
Unbelievable. It's this kid, Thomas Laclaya. He played under 20s for the French national side. He ran it in from halfway, boys. Go and have a look at it. It's ridiculous. He takes a decent ball carry on the 50 and then dummies the fullback into the front row and then dives over. So he was my wild card. But mate, I agree with you. Not just the front row, but La Rochelle in general. The performance, the work rate, the drive, the determination, the accomplishment. European champions coming from Pro D2 8 years ago. Absolutely, meter moment of the weekend is La Rochelle and their win. If you want to corner off just the front row, we can have that, but 100% La Rochelle.
Absolutely, they can all share it. That was Johnny and Benji's meter moment of the week, and Meter is the world's #1 wireless meat thermometer, recently making over 11 million cooks better with their game-changing app and completely wireless Bluetooth meat probe. You can use it on a barbecue, in the oven, or in a pan, and you can get your hands on one at meter.com. Plus, you can now get 20% off any full price item. All you have to do is enter the code FrenchPod20 at checkout. That's FrenchPod20, and you'll get 20% off any full price item at meter.com. let's very quickly look ahead to the final weekend of the top 14 regular season as well, because we touched on earlier on, absolutely huge, so much up for grabs. Lyon La Rochelle, we mentioned earlier, is absolutely massive, and two teams who, I don't know, maybe the team who stops celebrating the earliest will win. I don't know. How do you see it going?
I don't know. It's very, very complicated. Look, I still remember Toulon beating us in 2013 in Dublin, going on the smash for 4 days, and then they won the semi-final. For 3 days after that, they were still steaming. So if La Rochelle, considering how much they won, all based on the heart and how much they love each other and the depth of the squad, I reckon they can go at it again. So if anything, I'm more confident about La Rochelle still keeping on going on that level, and then qualifying, rather than Lyon stepping up, rather than Toulon stepping up. And Toulon got a couple of injuries, so I don't know. It's one of those. I'm more worried about Toulouse. I'm very worried about Clermont, very, and these teams. But I think for the European champions, La Rochelle will still keep on going.
I'm not worried about Toulouse. They're home to Biarritz, so they're going to pick up 5 points. They're already sixth, right? So they're going to pick up 5 points. So they're home and dry. La Rochelle going away to Lyon. So you've got both European champions, La Rochelle in fourth, and Lyon in eighth. So Lyon, if they're going to get in the top six, they have to win at home. They have to win at home, and if they win, they can go level with La Rochelle. So it's still all to play for. This thing, the permeations in the last weekend are absolutely huge. The other one that is ridiculous is Racing against Toulon. Like you just mentioned, Toulon as well with a couple of injuries, but Racing, who are currently fifth on 66 points, tied sixth with Toulouse. Toulon are on 64 points in seventh. So that Racing Toulon game is it's a winner takes all again.
Obviously, because of bonus points, they're not straight shootouts, but it does very much feel like Lyon v La Rochelle and Racing v Toulon are almost winner takes all. You win and you're in.
Exactly. And if you're La Rochelle and you go away and you lose, but you take away a losing bonus point, you're still in with a chip in a chair, but you have to wait on other results. And the nice thing about the last round is that it's all played at the exact same time. So you can't wait and see who's done what, as you would in any other regular round or weekend. This weekend, everything's played at 9:05 at night or 8:05 back in the UK. And it's going to be absolute carnage. And that's the thing, you've emptied yourself. As we know, Benji, it's a marathon in the top 14. And then come 11:30 on Saturday night, there's going to be some people that are absolutely stoked and some guys are going to be absolutely devastated. So those are the two massive games. And the other one you mentioned, Benji, is Clermont playing at home. They're home to Montpellier, and Clermont can still qualify as well. They're on 62 points in ninth.
At the other end, can you see any way Perpignan can escape that relegation playoff by beating Bordeaux, Brive losing at Stade Francais?
I think Brive have got a better chance of winning at Stade Francais because they've got absolutely nothing to play for. And I think Perpignan are at home, but they're against Bordeaux, who's shooting for a home semi-final. And I can't see Perpignan winning that one. So I think that would confirm Perpignan would be 13th, and they'll be playing against the losers of Bayonne Mont-de-Marsan, which will kick off next week as well.
There we go. Hell of a weekend up ahead. Thanks, Johnny. Thanks, Benji. And thanks to all you guys for listening as well. Make sure you hit subscribe. Leave us a nice review if you can as well. Check us out on Rugby Pass and on YouTube. And we will be back with another episode next week. Au revoir, guys.
Cheers.
Cheers, fellas.